Tesla, my Tesla has changed the game. Just in the past couple weeks, we've heard massive announcements. Ford is now going to use Tesla's supercharger network. General Motors is now going to use Tesla's supercharger network. Some huge news, right? And so I want to react to two videos. This one's from 5 hours ago. Tesla's having an AWS or Apple Services moment. And if you don't know, like AWS is arguably the most important business of Amazon, actually more important arguably than the e-commerce business, which is crazy to think about. And obviously Apple Services is built into their second most important business behind the iPhone, right? So I want to watch this one, react to this one, kind of give my 2 cents on this, okay? Second video I want to react to is Gene Munster, very popular. I think he was I don't think he covers Apple anymore, but he kind of got known for covering Apple back in the day, but now he covers Meta and Tesla very heavily, and I want to listen to what he has to say in regards to this and kind of react to this. So appreciate everybody joining me. As always, 28,500 plus subscribers now on this channel, guys. I appreciate y'all being here as always. And also, I made 5 moves in the Patreon portfolio. If you want to see all the moves I'm making in the market, check out the pinned comment down there so you can see what moves I made here today and future moves as well as the entire Patreon portfolio, okay? Great day for Tesla. Another $15,000 up on this position here today, up another 4%, man. Tesla's rolling. Congrats to all fellow Tesla shareholders out there, guys. Give yourselves a thumbs up. That's amazing.
2/3 of the world is covered by water, and the rest is covered by you, Dan Ives. There's a lot of stocks in your universe that you cover, but Tesla's certainly right up there. What is it about the stock right now and the company that is giving you so much bullishness?
Yeah, I think what's happening, it's a sum of the parts. I'd almost call it an AWS moment, almost an Apple Services moment for Tesla, because what's starting to happen now is that the 313 area code, after years of resisting, they recognize they need Tesla. And I think when you look at the supercharger perspective...
Detroit folks, okay, that was just a fancy way of saying the Detroit companies.
From a revenue perspective, you go out 2025, GM Ford, they get 15% share. You're looking now an incremental $3 billion, $4 billion a year of revenue that was not there. And I think what's starting to happen right now for Tesla, from batteries to supercharger to storage, the sum of the parts thesis is now starting, I believe, in the early stages to play out with investors. That's really what's starting to happen now with the stock, in my opinion.
It's a great point he brings out there. And you know what is even a bigger point I want to make here in regards to Tesla, because people are trying to figure out if Tesla's overvalued, undervalued. Tesla has not even priced in their future automobile business growth, okay? They're trading at maybe a little over 2 times what the market's trading at, about 2.5 times, right? Meanwhile, they're going to grow 10x, if not over 10x, the market on average for at least the next 5 years, if not the next 10 years, okay? So that stock has not even actually priced in the auto business growth. That's the craziest part to think about this, right? Now you add on energy, what the energy business can be over time, and that business has actually been tearing it up, especially in regards to storage products and whatnot, right? The autonomous taxi network opportunity, there's $0 priced in the stock for that opportunity, right? That's huge. If it can happen, we'll see, right? We'll see over the next few years. And obviously, their technology is not even priced in when it comes to stock. All that's priced in is basically like the next 2 years of auto business growth without the supercharger network and any of these things. And so that's why I've gotten more and more bullish on Tesla, especially this year. And I actually bought Tesla shares this year, which was the first time I bought Tesla shares in, since, 2019 or so, 2018, 2019. So which goes to show you how, I guess you'd say bullish I am on Tesla and kind of the valuation of the company.
There is another theory that, he got them on the network and he got them on the technology, but that design, they have 100 years of refreshing designs with high frequency, and in the end, that's going to mean better unit sales for the legacies than perhaps the Teslas. What do you think?
Yeah, my view is that Musk needs GM and Ford actually be successful for the broader EV vision in terms of just adoption in the United States.
Move the adoption curve higher.
And it's the jobs thesis, in other words, like from Apple, and I think that's really what's starting to play. And that's why right now you're seeing Farley and Mary ultimately partner with Musk, because I believe this is just the first step. It's starting with superchargers. And ultimately, I think next step could be battery technology. And I think that's the golden...
Did you watch my channel I put out on the main channel last night? Oh my gosh.
Right now is that they've built the castle. waiting for others to call. Farley called, Mary called. And I think it's just the start of what I view, especially with demand I view it stable in terms of, what we saw coming out of our Asia checks being Asia the last few weeks. Margins, I think now are starting to trough out the next 1 to 2 quarters. And I think that's why investors right now are really starting to look at this in a different story.
So explain to our viewers just the revenue opportunity from these
Sure.
charging stations. How does Tesla make money from them?
It's a
What are
good
other
question.
opportunities that
This
it
is a good
has from all these
question.
cars stopping at these stations?
I like
so
this.
the 12,000 supercharger network, and when you start to think about it, they're really the only one. That's why range anxiety, why would a Jim, a Dave, a Sarah not buy an actual technology? Why would they not buy EVs? It's because of range anxiety. So now supercharger, Tesla has it. They basically they make per charge. If now from a revenue perspective, services, we think by 2024, it's about 10 billion that we're talking about annually revenue, margins much higher than autos. So that's almost like software-like margins. Now, GM Ford, you get, let's call it 1 million cars on that network. That's incremental in the billions, 2, 3, 4 billion per year that was not there on an annuity. And I think that's why when you're starting, the reason I call it an AWS moment is I think for many years, AWS not really valued from an Amazon.
Right.
Now all of a sudden,
You
that
can
was a
throw a
big
pretty
part.
high multiple on a recurring revenue stream like that, right?
Apple services, okay, I'll assign 100 billion. You go back years ago, today, we think it's worth 1.4 trillion. So that's why I view it in terms of the reason I believe Musk is playing chess and others are playing checkers, you're now starting to see it play out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of those points echo a lot of the points I made on the main channel last night in my video. So, yeah, I appreciate that one. 100% in agreement. Next one up here, Gene Munster. Let's hear what he has to say in regards to this.
Electric vehicles, talk about looking out. GM will now follow Ford and partner with Tesla to use Tesla's network of fast chargers. Tesla bull Kathy Woods joining us earlier in the show. Here's what she had to say about it.
It does help Tesla underwrite the charging station expense, because if you look at Tesla's sales, they are highly concentrated on the coasts. Now it's going to make a lot more sense for Tesla to roll out charging stations that much faster throughout the country.
True.
Joining us right now with his reaction, Gene Munster, managing partner at Deepwater Asset Management. Good morning to you. We've been talking all morning about just the implication in terms of just straight up cash on cash earnings that this may create for Tesla, beyond the branding, beyond all of the other things that this may do for Tesla. The fact that now this becomes the standard and gives them an opportunity to grow even larger just as an infrastructure play, Gene.
It's true, Andrew. I mean, this is a positive step for a small business that investors historically have not given much attention to. That is that infrastructure, that charging network. There are publicly traded companies that do just that. But still, when you look at the context of Tesla's overall market cap, look at their revenue, this is a fractional business and will probably remain a small business. Even with the addition of Ford, GM, and other car makers, undoubtedly will go to this charging network. So
I agree and disagree with him, okay? I agree with him in terms of, like, if you're looking at the whole of Tesla and you're thinking about how much just the auto business continues to grow out, right? At an average selling price of, let's say, $50,000, right? I understand that. But I think the point that shouldn't be overlooked in regards to this is you can still be talking about this can help several billions of dollars per year for Tesla's revenue, right? And so, yeah, if you look at the whole company, it's not a crazy number, but when you think about it as still like a pure number, it's absolutely epic, right? Eventually, when you become a bigger and bigger company, which is obviously what Tesla's doing and will do over the, in a few years from now, they're going to be doing several $100 billion of revenue per year, right? You start to have the law of large numbers start to catch up with you, where you could launch a new business and it could be even like billions of dollars, but it starts to not look that big. That's a problem like Apple has. For instance, Apple, I believe, is well over $400 billion of revenue now at this point in time. Apple can launch a big new business, and actually, even though it's a big business, if you were to compare it to other businesses, it's actually really small compared to Apple. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It can still throw off maybe hundreds of millions of dollars to the bottom line, or billions of dollars to the bottom line, which obviously changes the valuation. And it also gives investors a look at the company in a different light and maybe potentially look at it as a safer stock.
view this more
Because the business
as
model is
a
more
positive
diversified.
for GM and Ford. It's probably a slight positive for Tesla, like we talked about, because they will pick up some infrastructure revenue. But ultimately is that they are giving the rails to these competitors which have been struggling.
Right.
And I think traditional auto is in a really tight spot over the next decade, in part because of infrastructure. Now, good news for Ford and GM, they're going to be leveraging that. And I think ultimately what Elon is doing here is he's making good on his promise that he wants to advance electrification. This is part of the company's mission statement to advance the energy independence. And so I think he's doing this as more of a move for greater EVs than a positive for Tesla.
Look, I think it's an extraordinary thing, what he's now done. And there's no question. I mean, these mortal enemies, you probably listened to that Twitter Spaces between Mary Barra and him yesterday. I mean, it was awkward, to be honest with you, just hearing the different personalities on the phone. But it's an amazing thing. The thing that the upside, of course, is for the industry, for the country. There is potential, and by the way, I was going to argue for Tesla generally in terms of potentially both revenue and the sort of marketing and advertising they get from every time any of these vehicles now go to a Tesla charging station. Yep. Having said that, one of the things that's popped up on Twitter, no less, this morning is a number of folks who say, look, there's now a line around the block already for some of these Tesla charging stations. And the line is...
My point to that is I think Tesla's going to expand their superchargers massively, especially now that more, other auto manufacturers are going to jump on Tesla, right? And I think my opinion on this is, and this has been my opinion for at least a year or two now at this point in time, is I think eventually you're going to see some big announcements from potentially some retailers, some fast food chains, some restaurant chains, of them starting to have Tesla superchargers in their parking lot nationwide. And what those restaurants are, or those fast food places, or those retailers, I don't know, but I see it happening. And the reason being is it would be great branding. I mean, it would also potentially bring more customers to them, right? I mean, think about, if you drive a Tesla, you know what I'm talking about, right? You drive to a Tesla supercharger, a lot of them could be at a fast food restaurant's parking lot, or, maybe at some massive gas station or whatever. And guess what? You're more than likely going to go in that establishment and then spend some money as well, right? So it's a brilliant kind of marketing tactic, in my opinion, a lot of restaurants could do. And I think it's a brilliant kind of tactic from just getting more people into your store or into your restaurant because they're there to supercharge. So I think that's coming down the line. And don't be surprised if you hear things like that sooner rather than later.
Going to grow larger. That's not actually a good thing for the Tesla brand. What do you make of that?
It's something that's real. If you'd poll Tesla owners, I'm not one of them, but if you'd poll a Tesla owner, they would probably be disappointed in this announcement. One thing that came up on that Twitter space yesterday that you
never been an issue for me in Vegas or Arizona in terms of getting a supercharger, but I can tell you, whenever I drive to LA, whole different ballgame, man. LA superchargers. A lot of times you got to wait for those babies, okay? And we're talking about wait 10, 20, 30 minutes in LA. So I think LA is a whole different scenario. And maybe New York City, I don't know, because I haven't driven around a Tesla in New York City before, but I can tell you in LA, it's definitely an issue. And so maybe in some other very congested cities, it could be an issue.
Referring to is that Tesla would not give preferential treatment in terms of being able to jump the line with some of these other car makers in the charging line, and I think and they would not essentially demote what these other car makers are getting from a technology as speeding the charging speed times. So they're not going to meter it, and I think that that is something that could. Backfire is probably too strong of a word, but this range anxiety, Kathy is spot on. Range anxiety is the big issue here. It's kind of a bizarre topic but ultimately range anxiety and charging times and those wait lines all play into it. Right. And I think you could see a situation where this.
Anybody ever stop at the Eddie's World superchargers in between Vegas and LA? It's about 2 hours away from Vegas, about 2 hours away from LA. It's almost at the perfect point. Just shout out, let me know in the comments if you guys ever stop at the Eddie's World superchargers, right? But something I noticed about that one, for instance, is it started out with a certain amount of superchargers. Then they expanded it more superchargers. Then they expanded more superchargers. The this last time I went, I was like, wow, there's even superchargers in there now. And now, just at that Eddie's World, I think they've got probably, oh gosh, easily 15 to 20 superchargers from what I saw. And so that's just one example of like, you could have a certain amount of superchargers maybe at an establishment, and if they got the space for it, you can over time get more and more superchargers, and the establishment understands like, oh, this is just going to bring us more business.
This is viewed as a negative by Tesla owners.
They may not advantage GM or Ford per se, but my question was actually going to be whether you think that the way the charging stations ultimately will work, that it'll still be a more seamless process if you're a Tesla driver over one of the others, or you think it's literally will ultimately on an app be the exact same, the same way the billing process, where everything as seamless no matter what kind of car you get in?
They addressed that both the Ford and the GM announcements addressed that in a subtle way. Is that next year these cars will be able to be charged from the Tesla charging networks with an adapter.
Right.
But in 2025,
that's not seamless, obviously.
That's not seamless. Correct. 2025, they want to embed the charging network into their software. So what that means is that if you were going to go on a trip right now with a Tesla, you can pinpoint your destination, and then it will optimize your charging route, essentially. That is something that is integrated. That's going to start, they say, in 2025. And so I think
that's huge for Tesla. Oh my gosh.
A user experience, the Ford and GM is going to be pretty similar to Tesla in 2025. Now, that's just for the charging piece. I think Tesla has an advantage when it comes to software. Ford would agree with that. So maybe there is some fit and finish around the software that isn't quite the same. But the substance of it, there's going to be a relatively parity around the charging experience by 2025.
Is there going to be a way to, for Tesla, you think, to market or provide other services to GM and Ford owners over time?
I mean, they could. Yeah. I think just given Elon, I think that there's some fun direction that they could take these charging stations over time. I mean, they could really stick it to traditional auto and turn these into showrooms. I mean, they could put a couple like micro showrooms, and they've kicked around that idea in the past of kind of making these destinations Tesla branded destinations. Now, presumably those nuances would have been addressed in some of these details. I wouldn't imagine that Ford and GM would want that. But I think from a branding perspective, there's a big opportunity that Tesla can do as they build out this infrastructure. And Kathy, again, is correct here, is that in the sense that they're going to be GM and Ford. They haven't been explicit about what the amount is, but they're going to be funding some of that infrastructure build. So presumably Tesla could add some of these other services or just add more branding at the cost of traditional auto.
So there's no need to put in a showroom or whatever that is at the superchargers. At the end of the day, at the superchargers, everybody talks. Okay, I mean, the amount of times I never go out of my way to talk to anybody, so I'm more of an introvert, right? But I can tell you, every single time I'm at a supercharger, people talk to me. Every single time. Sometimes people know me from the channel, and sometimes people have no clue who I am. They just start up a conversation, start talking about the wraps. Oh, how do I like it? Because they might have a different model of vehicle, right? And so that's like what happens at the supercharger. Like, people talk, and so people are going to talk and ask questions. Oh, what is that, a Model Y? Oh, how do you like that? Oh, it does this, it does that. Like, that's a supercharger life. And anybody that's a Tesla owner, you know what I'm talking about, man. People talk at those things all the time because, some people stay in their cars. Some people want to get out, walk around. You get bored. People start talking. That's like... So Tesla needs no supercharger, because believe me, a lot of people are going to ask a lot of questions, and then you get it from actual Tesla owners, which is way more genuine than trying to go out of your way to have to show off a product. Like, you don't need to do that. Your customers do it for you. Tesla's built the whole business off of basically word of mouth, to be quite frank, either from online videos or just from literally people telling their friends and family about them, or at superchargers or wherever. So that's just something still to this day, I get a lot of people that stop me, even not at superchargers, ask me questions about the Tesla. Oh, I was thinking about getting that. What model is that? Oh, it's this. How much are those? All that stuff. So, yeah, man, no need for showrooms or any of that. That's all I can say about that. Like, no. I appreciate y'all. Much love as always. Thanks for being subscribed. If you want to see the moves I'm making in the market, I made 5 moves here today. Check out the pinned comment down there. You get to see the Patreon portfolio, all the moves I'm making in there, and kind of my moves moving forward and whatnot. Appreciate y'all. Much love as always. And plus, you get to support the channel. It's a no-brainer. It's a pinned comment. And have a great day.